going on, you awesome movie nerds, and welcome back to another episode of What I've Been Watching. Because why have this epic movie collection if I'm not going to watch anything? So, the first thing I watched was To Catch a Thief. Alfred Hitchcock masterpiece. It's a really fun film. It's very Alfred Hitchcock. It takes a little bit to get going, but once it does, it really draws you in. Yeah, it had a lot of comedy in it, a lot of suspense. Not as suspenseful as many of his other works, but still, a really, really solid film. Also, ended up watching A Knight's Tale. This is one I've actually been wanting to watch for a while, just hadn't gotten around to it until recently. This was hilarious. It was so funny. And it's got, I knew it had Heath Ledger in it, but it's also got Paul Bettany. First time I had really seen him do any comedy was in WandaVision, and I was like, oh, this guy's like this guy's multi-talented. He had done comedy way back then with A Knight's Tale, and he's hilarious. He's probably the best part, best character in the movie. But A Knight's Tale is just a really fun take on this jousting tournament. They make it really feel like it's a sports thing, and it's just a really solid, fun movie. Consult my book, eh? Oh, dang. I forgot I watched this. Okay, the next thing I watched was Jesus Camp, which is a documentary I found on Hulu that came out in the early 2000s it's about a Pentecostal children's camp. And it's very clear that the filmmakers do not agree with the viewpoints of the camp director, which is really interesting because I'm watching this and I'm just so torn because they're bringing up some good points, but at the same time, I agree with the majority of what the camp stands for and what they're trying to do. I don't agree with everything, and so I felt like I was just caught right in the middle of the viewpoint of the filmmaker and then the camp director. And it's just a really fascinating documentary to me because it was definitely reminiscent of my childhood. All these kids, or the majority of the ones that they followed through this camp or whatever, were homeschooled, and I recognized a lot of the stuff that they were watching when they were at home, like old Buddy Davis stuff that I used to watch or different things. It felt very familiar to my childhood to a degree, and it was an interesting watch for me. I don't think it would be for everyone, but for me it was very interesting. Then I ended up watching The Losers. But I had seen this one scene where Chris Evans is going through singing Don't Stop Believin'. Kind of been wanting to see, it's like it was in the back of my mind, like if I have the chance to see The Losers, I kind of want to see it. Well, the opportunity presented itself and I ended up watching it, and it's really fun. It's super enjoyable, just kind of like fairly light action, comedy sort of superhero movie. It definitely left room for a sequel, and I kind of would have liked to see these characters again. Similarly to what I felt about Man from U.N.C.L.E. Like, it's a really solid opening film, but I feel like if you could have continued a franchise with it, it would have been that much better. Anyway, Losers, it was pretty fun. Then I watched Don't Think Twice. Don't Think Twice is an improv movie that I absolutely love. And so this was like a rewatch for me. But the reason I put on Don't Think Twice was because I've been watching Whose Line Is It Anyway? Which is a hilarious improv show. And I remember Don't Think Twice and just loving this movie. And so I watched it again. And it is one of the most depressing movies about improv comedy. It was such an odd feeling, and I remember getting my love for improv through watching Don't Think Twice, and I still see that, but it is not nearly as much of a comedy as I had remembered it being. Still a super solid film, and I think it has one of the best climaxes and resolutions, just because it perfectly, it's one of the most perfectly paced. It builds and then it just brings things to a head and then immediately resolves in such a satisfying way. It has a brilliant ending, and I don't want to spoil it, but I want to recommend, if you haven't seen Don't Think Twice, go find it, go watch it. it's one of my favorites. Also put on Raising Arizona. I watched a lot this week. I watched Raising Arizona, Coen Brothers movie. It's good. I don't know, I was wanting to like it more than I did. Not that I had anything I really disliked about it. It just wasn't connecting with me or grabbing me. Especially like some of their other works from the Coen Brothers have. But still, just a hilarious movie. Really solid movie. Just didn't grab me as much as I was wanting it to. So I then finished watching The Morning Show. Last week I was kind of up in the air whether I was going to keep my Apple TV Plus to finish off The Morning Show, maybe watch some other stuff, or just cancel it after the 7-day free trial. I ended up deciding to keep it because there were several comments that said, finish The Morning Show, it gets better. Well, I finished The Morning Show. My thoughts are still the same on it. It has a really solid opening, then it just drags in the middle with a bunch of stuff that's just unnecessary. It does kind of... It comes together well enough by the end, but they definitely end it in a way that they could make a second season for this. But they ended in such a way that I don't feel like it was satisfying. If you don't get that second season, and I already feel like you stretched this premise out more than you had for one season. So I don't think it needs a second season, and then you ended it in such an unsatisfying way to me. Yeah, I was disappointed. I was really disappointed with The Morning Show, but with that being said, there are a lot of interesting themes and questions that this show brings up, and some amazing performances by Steve Carell, by the guy who plays Chip. I don't know his name. But then the girl who plays Hannah, I think, was, to me, just the standout. Because she grabbed me from the very beginning. To see where she ended up then, and what had happened to her in the past, and how she was able to put on that bright face still. It was just... She was a standout. Overall, I wouldn't really recommend The Morning Show. I wouldn't say don't watch it, but it's just, there's better stuff out there. So then, I also watched Unbreakable. I picked it up at the thrift store recently because I knew it was M. Night Shyamalan. I knew it was in the same universe with Split and Mr. Glass. I have not seen Split yet. I really want to. But I decided, pick it up, and just kind of randomly threw it on last night. And it's an interesting watch. It's like The Morning Show. It has such a great start and a brilliant premise. It asks these interesting questions, and it all really does come together by the end. That middle part just kind of drags. And the acting in this movie is so bizarre and weird and just out there. And the way it's filmed in these long takes, so many times, and it's not long takes that are set up very well. They're just not, because there's so many times where you just sit on this one shot and you're just looking at the back of Bruce Willis's head while the entire scene plays out, and you just lose so much of the emotion that could. And so when there is emotion, it feels so forced and out of nowhere. Overall, it was interesting because the premise alone of this guy thinking, wait, what if I am a superhero, sort of thing, and what they do with Mr. Glass by the end and everything, it was interesting. I'm glad I watched it, but there are a lot of problems with this movie. Last thing I ended up watching, one thing I was not planning at all to watch, or at least to finish, was another show from Apple TV Plus, Ted Lasso. So that's another suggestion one of you guys left down in the comments of the last video. And like I said, I wasn't planning. I was just kind of wanting a show to start watching, and I got so hooked and drawn in to Ted Lasso. It's such a brilliant, hilarious show, and I think the 30-minute episode run times really help it keep a really nice pace to it, rather than, I feel, with the morning show, you have an hour-long runtime, and it feels like even within the episode itself, things can get stretched. But yeah, Ted Lasso, it's about a football coach going over to England to coach football. And there's so much, like, it is a fun fish out of water story. It's also a fun just sports story. Beyond that, just watching Ted Lasso and the leadership he's able to bring, and understanding that there's something to be said for building relationships within the team, or within the people that you're leading, and even building relationships within that community. It was really, really cool to see, but also to see Ted Lasso isn't a perfect person either. He's dealing with his own problems. And you also have the contrast at times with at what point are we here just to build relationships, or just to be a good influence on these people, and at what point do we actually need to do what's right for the team in order for this team to win games and for this team to be effective. It strikes this really good balance. If I had one issue, and I do have one issue, Ted Lasso. He's going through a divorce. Well, initially he's going through some hard times, so he takes his job in England to kind of give his wife some space. He doesn't want to get the divorce. He's still in love, but she just no longer feels the same way. And it plays it off as if it's such a natural thing for people to just not be in love anymore, and that it's natural for you to get a divorce or whatever, for you to fall out of love. It's a natural thing to do. How easily and how quickly Ted Lasso gave up his marriage. Didn't like how nonchalantly they handled that. But overall, the show is really, really solid, and I would highly recommend Ted Lasso if you haven't seen it. So yeah, that is what I have been watching this week. This was a bit of I watched a lot this week. I was watching stuff. Anyway, what have you guys been watching? Have you guys been watching something old, something new? Let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. As always, I love you awesome nerds, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys.